Create that life legacy, designers. Amber Prosia here. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Parenting Biz Podcast, coming to you every Monday. Now let's chat with this week's featured guest, Shane Anderson. Shane, are you ready to educate us on your journey of how you constructed the life you've always wanted for yourself and your family?
You bet. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. Shane Anderson is an ordinary guy living an extraordinary life. He's a high school dropout who has spent the last 23 years developing a successful career in the car body repair industry. In June of 2014, Shane changed direction using a proven system to automate his car business while he traveled the globe visiting over 38 countries in the last 20 months. Spending 3 years in personal development and traveling with Anthony Robbins as a platinum partner, Shane's greatest achievement was stepping away from being a business operator to becoming a business owner. Shane, please take a minute to fill in any gaps from that intro and give us a little glimpse of your personal life.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. Yeah, look, it's been a heck of a ride, but there was definitely a shift in mindset as I started to grow in personal development, and that was really the aha moment for me, which started to shift everything. And then I started to look at my business as a business instead of as a livelihood. And no, you just about covered everything from there.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Shane. We really appreciate it. So as you are aware, our listeners are parents or parents-to-be that realize ownership is key to not only to our parenting or business, but in life in general. And along the parenting journey, we can lose sight of that. However, if we focus on life as a game or a sport or an activity, not only can we learn to let go easier, but we can also gain strength from our mistakes and design our core focus to be one of laughter, joy, and most importantly, having fun, just like a 5-year-old kid in the sandbox. So this week, our entire interview will be conducted around the first rugby match of the season. Welcome to our first game of the season called Don't Knock On, Kick It. Now, as we're all aware, this is an analogy. We can create and design our lives any way we want. Shane, this was your chosen sport, so please take us through your daily game and how you make it work with your life and expertise.
Awesome. So let's have a look at this from a practical sense. Obviously, before the game kicks off, majority of the work is done before the game kicks off. It's all about how you prepare mentally, what you do, the little things that you do off the ball. For me, it very much does rely around a sporting procedure because I look at my life as a sporting season. I actually take each week as it comes, and I understand that each week is not going to always bring the desired result, but progress equals happiness, right? So what I'm trying to do over the course of the year is to win the season, not win every game. And I think once you do that, you're able to take the pressure off yourself when things go a little askew, and you're able to just say, okay, we didn't do too well this week, but next week we can improve, we can get better, we can do what we need to do. So like any sport, the hard work happens in the off season. It's what you do to get yourself to game one that I believe is probably the most important thing in any business, parenting, whatever it may be. And when I look at that, the number one critical factor for me is time management. How do you manage time, especially if you're a young parent or planning to be a parent? How do you manage everything at once? Because can I tell you, multitasking is a myth right now. Well, for all the men out there, it's definitely a myth. I mean, the women out there, you guys are a little bit different. You can multitask and do it well. But us guys, if I get any more than one thing in my head at any one time, trust me, I'm not thinking about anything else. That's why when you speak to your husband or your boyfriend and you ask them a question about something and they're watching the game, they're not ignoring you. That's just that their one task is being currently full. And, it's not us being disrespectful. It's just that we cannot multitask. It's a myth. So knowing that knowledge and knowing how to actually be able to bring that into a business environment, I created my own time management system called the GPS system, right? I'm a guy, GPS, it's about cars. But, what that really means is it's like goals, planning, and then the strategy in behind it. And those three aspects of being able to really delivered me massive results, not only in my personal life, my health, my business life, my relationships. Every single aspect of my life gets attention, but not because I leave it to chance. It's all broken down into its own individual categories, and each of those categories have their own defined goals. So I am very much into the whole time management. That's the first thing I start my week off with. It usually takes me about 45 minutes to get started before I even begin my week. But if I don't do those 45 minutes, I can guarantee you that the next 7 days will be just like a washing machine. It'll be just, there'll be stuff there. I will be putting out fires. I'll be running around, not being able to actually achieve anything. And I will get to the end of the week and I will feel more exhausted than ever. And it's all based around the fact that I never structured my week effectively. And I think that's probably one of the key things for me. I learned, the system Tony Robbins speaks, there's Brian Tracy, there's all of these other different people that speak time management skills. I sort of, without trying to be impolite, I bastardized most of those systems and brought them in and created my own system so that it worked for me, because I didn't have 3 or 4 hours to do a time management system each week. I needed it to be quick, I needed it to be efficient, and I needed it to also be something that I could use daily and would use daily on one app.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Did you create it as an app as well?
No, I use free apps. So I use, there is multiple apps. I'm obviously hooked into Google, the Google Drive platform, linking with Google Calendar. That is a big one for me. The second app that I use a lot is Evernote. So the combination between those two apps, which are both free, you can download them from the App Store. The combination of those two apps have been able to devise a system for me that really, really, when I say powerful, I mean, like I'm talking last year in 2017, I wrote down, I think it was 36 goals and 32 of them were done in 1 year. So, amazing. That to me, and I'm talking big goals. I mean, one of those goals at the start of the year, I wrote down, I want to be on stage. I've never been able to speak on stage in front of people. And I was like, I want to be on stage in front of 10,000 people this year. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, you find that hard to believe, but in April of 2017, I was standing on stage in front of 23,000 people and doing a speech. So it's amazing that once you set your mind to it, everyone's heard of the reticular activating system. It's the RTS. It's when you set your mind to it, the world seems to focus in on those things. And because you have a direction you're aiming at, you're actually able to bring that material into your life, the law of attraction and all this sort of stuff. I'm not one to just sort of say, hey, I want this and then do nothing. I did a lot of hard work between now and then as well. I set out a strategy on how I was actually going to get that, but it did happen with less than 3 months. And I ended up on stage, as I say, at the Dallas football stadium. You were there, Amber, and 23,000 people in that audience. It was an amazing experience.
I could only imagine. And honestly, Shane, you've just dropped so many golden nuggets already that I had to take notes of just trying to keep up with some of them for it. But I will obviously do a whole transcript, so they'll be in the show notes for you guys too, and you can obviously replay this. But I love just going back that you actually said about you actually create your life based on the season, and that you focus on each game, and it's not about winning each game, it's actually the overall season and how you construct it. And I love that about you. And the one thing I actually love too is, this is one question, is that you went right into the pregame, right? Because it's all about preparation, and the practice and the warm-up before the first game of the season is crucial. So all that preparation. What have you constructed down for your time management now for your week? And I know you said it takes about 45 minutes. Have you looked into the 12-week year yet by Brian Moran? I know you mentioned a few different people like Brian Tracy and Tony, but I just thought maybe that was something that you could incorporate into your own time management if you've listened to him before.
I have not. And, one of my biggest pathways, as you know, is growth. So I'm always open for new books. I'm always open for new pathways. I'm never one of these people that, and I think this is very important, that you think that you know. See, one of the biggest gifts that Tony Robbins gave me was I was sitting in the audience and somebody mentioned NLP. If you don't know what NLP is, it's neuro-linguistic programming. And it was the first time I'd ever experienced it. And I had no idea what people were talking about. And it was like all of a sudden someone flashed a light on, and it was like I was standing in a hall that was completely black that I didn't know existed. So from that moment forward, I swore to myself that, you know, if anyone recommended a book or anyone recommended a speaker, you better promise myself that I will look into that and I will read at least one or two of their books just to see exactly what it is and how you can incorporate this stuff. So you can be sure, you know, next time we speak, I will know this gentleman.
Yeah, please do, because you know, we've talked a great deal on just personal development, and I do value growth as well. And you know, especially just recently becoming pregnant, I thought before I was always focused. However, I've been working with my business coach, and one of the books that he's put me on is the 12-week year, and it has not only with the you know, the ticking time bomb in the belly, but also with just how we spend our time and the limited time that we have here on earth, that how focused now my time is, and it's all based on time blocks. And that 45-minute session that you do on a weekly basis, I do every Monday morning for 15 minutes. And I actually score myself every week. And it's actually based on a 12 weeks. So pretty much the concept is your entire year is actually broken down into 12 weeks. And your 1 week is broken in, or sorry, your 1 month is broken into 1 week. And then your 1 day is broken into hours. Like, it's really short. So it's really great. I'll put in the link in the show notes so you can check it out if you like.
Fantastic.
No problem. But that goes into now my question about the pregame speech, because if you don't mind me also, if you don't mind sharing, of course, this kind of goes into a question about your own personal life, what's happening at the moment. But most importantly with other listeners is you're so focused, and that's time management. But when you have all these other concerns happening, especially in your personal life, especially with a loved one, how can you stay focused in the dressing room? You're about to step onto the field, but how can you step on field as if nothing happened? Or what is the mindset that you're telling yourself to keep staying focused and achieving and accomplishing these goals while you have other distractions might be occurring?
Yeah, great question. And look, there is a couple of things that I do, a couple of strategies that I take on. And one of them is the first thing I do when I open my eyes now is I do what they call a soul sync. So I basically spend 12 minutes focusing on being still and basically trying to quieten the idiot in my head, right? Which is that little voice that tells you that there's a million things to do and worry about. So the first 12 minutes is about staying focused, because believe it or not, in my experience, you can't achieve anything unless you're in your creativity state, and you can't seem to overcome any of life's issues while you're currently in the state that they were developed in. So you need to be outside. You need to be like nearly broken out of that box. So what I do is you can YouTube that. It's like just YouTube Soul Sync. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about there. It's just a simple little meditation exercise. Just puts me in a state of creativity. I then follow that up with a feeling of gratefulness and go into what I call a prime, which is 3 songs that I have put together, which allow me to go and flood myself with gratefulness and love, and put myself into a space of abundance. And then from there, I bring in affirmations of who I think I should be and will be and am. And I drive that hard. That's a little bit more of a harder song. I use something from Eminem. It's just, that's what I do. You can create your own, of course. And then I celebrate. I celebrate like it's already been done. And that's very difficult. I mean, I am going through a really tough time at the moment. My wife and I got back from the Maldives last week, and she got a chest infection, which led her to the hospital. And just in like hours, they ended up moving her up to intensive care, and that ended up making her very, very ill. And they ended up putting her in an induced coma where she sits as we speak now. So we're on day 8 So my wife is, and I love my wife to death, you know, but she's currently in an induced coma up at the hospital, but in saying that, I understand that there's still things that need to happen in life, because as much as I want to be there 24/7 and I'm up there a lot, if I don't continue moving forward, I will get overrun and crumbled by life. You know, it will kick the heck out of me. So I have to step up. And so I start with a soul sync. I start with a prime to get myself in my head into space. And then I have little items of clothing that I wear. Now, this is a part of my time management, but there is certain things that I have, like little anchors, they call them. So when I am in a certain business, one of the parts of that business was I was given this big, flash, ugly-looking diamond ring, right? And as weird as it is to wear it, when I'm wearing that ring, I'm in that frame of mind. So there's like, I nearly turn into a that's me. I have a different persona. I have a different outlook on life. I have a different goals, and I really slip into that role. And then when I'm home with the wife, I don't really need a uniform with her. So when I take everything off, I go back into the husband state. And I've really been able to break down all my individual characteristics, because, one of my things is obviously car repair. So when I put my car uniform on, I go into that role, and I really consciously make sure that I'm wearing the right uniform for the right personality type that I need to bring to the conversation. So there is certain parts of me that are broken at the moment, but the part to me that's doing the podcast at the moment is a different part of me. Does that make sense? So I'm not trying to say to somebody you need to change from a square into a triangle. What I'm trying to say is you basically change from a square into a cube. You add layers to yourself, and you identify your different personality types and bring them when they serve you, not when they don't serve you. You see, if you were to bring your work home, which a lot of people do, they go to work, they come home, and they bring that back into their relationship, and that causes all sorts of problems. Why? Because you're in a different state of mind. So what would be the greatest gift if you could switch out, if you could just shake it out? I mean, one of the things that we're going through at the moment is difficult, but I look at the nurses up there working at the ICU, and, how do they deal with what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then be able to come home and lead a normal life and be happy? And they need to have an anchor. They need to have an ability to be able to break that state. So that also comes down to, pardon me.
That's okay.
That also comes down to the same thing of when you're actually preparing to go into battle or go onto the field in this analogy. The first thing that a player does is they put on their uniform. So, they put on their boots, they put on their, the tape around their head. They get prepared to go into a field of battle. And once they hit that field, once they walk across that white stripe, nothing else matters. And that is the critical component. Imagine if you did that for every aspect of your life. Imagine if you could do that with your kids. Imagine if you had an anchor on yourself, that when you sat with your kids, the phone didn't matter, your friends didn't matter, your outside influence didn't matter, that all that mattered was that you were with your children and you spent the time with them the way that you were supposed to do that. Imagine if you could do that in your work. Imagine if you could do that in your relationship. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can do that. This is about being able to identify your different personality types. And, I heard a saying once that said, how do you know a dog is your dog? Well, guess what? You name it, and then you call it at will, right? And that's how you know a dog is your dog. Up until that point, you don't know what the dog is. But once you name the dog and start to call the dog, and it starts to come, then it becomes your dog. And that, to me, is very, very powerful. So I've been able to break down my life into categories. I break them down. I have 8 personal categories. I have 8 business categories. And, my personal categories are my family, my, home finances, my children, my friends, being able to contribute back to society, etc. And then my business categories are more like, administration and, in my case, training and extreme ownership and a few other bits and pieces, and being an innovator. And I break them all down and create goals for them, but I also created personalities around those. So each person that attacks that category, then they are automatically in uniform. They are ready to rock and roll. There is no outside influence that could break that mold. And by able to do that, I don't have to multitask. All I need to do is go into one of my categories, and I will give myself a set amount of time to do that, and I will play the game as that character. Make sense?
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, and you've already hit on it, but I just want to elaborate and probably ask you in a different angle, because there's probably some listeners out there thinking of, okay, well, I need to be this person in this scenario and I need to be this person in another scenario, rather than how you communicated anchors and how you're putting on different uniforms. And yes, they're different personalities, but at the end of it, and the big key and the core is you're still being authentic. So you're not putting on a different mask and pretending to be someone else. You're actually stepping into that game and into that persona that you already are, but you're just sole focusing on that and being authentically yourself. Would that be correct, Shane? Or how?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. I mean, the key to all of this is integrity and congruency. You need to be congruent with who you are. There's no use being, and you will find that if you're playing a role that doesn't suit you, you will actually see the world will push you back from that. So once you find your calling, the world seems to suck you in. It's like you've hit the right radio station and every song you love, right? So you need to understand that when I mentioned the analogy between the square and the cube, this isn't you becoming something different. It's not you trying to be a different version of you. You're just adding layers in. So when I go to my car repair business, I'm exactly the same. I'm Shane. I still have the same integrity values. The only difference is that I'm more focused on outcome. I'm more focused on procedure and systems, right? And so when I'm asking questions, my primary question in my head is, how do we get the best outcome at the lowest possible expense, right? So that is a different question in my head that I would ever ask if I was sitting there eating dinner with my wife. And so if I'm enjoying dinner with my wife, then realistically, I'm asking myself, like, how can I maximize the gratitude and appreciation for this moment right now, right? So that is a different question. Now, if I go into the car business and start asking, how do I maximize the gratitude and appreciation in my heart right now, it's like, that's not going to serve me well. Does that make sense? Absolutely. But at my core, that is still a question that's a value that drives me. So, that is what I'm talking about. It's more like you drive yourself with a different question, because, I'm very much around the law of attraction, and I'm very much around the fact that people draw in what they ask for. I believe the human brain we know nothing about, and everybody seems to get what they ask for. You'll see people walking down the street and they'll say, why has this always happened to me? Why does all the bad stuff happen to me? And guess what? More bad stuff happens. And, I'm very much of the belief that if you ask yourself the correct question, you will get the correct answer. So sometimes the salvation for a lot of people in their life is just to purely identify what the primary question is that's running in your head right now, and be able to identify that and maybe change that around. So I had a question when I was a younger man of, why can't I trust anybody? Mm-hmm. And how do you think that question was relaying out? Every single person I met from that point were untrustworthy. Why? Because I was self proclaiming my own identity, right? So now my primary question is, and I say it with a state of certainty, and I say this every morning until it's real in my head, but I say to myself, the purpose of my life is to live with honesty and integrity. and be conscious of every magic moment around me. Now, just the two different questions. Think to yourself how different that would be in your head if you changed a question of why can't I trust anybody around me to the purpose of my life is to live with honesty and integrity, right? That in itself changes everything around you. And this is the key here, is that most people are really, especially when they're going through very traumatic times and and emotional times and stuff like that, it is very easy to get tied up and start to stack the unwanted. And then all of a sudden you start to look for the unwanted and more of it arrives. And this is how people run out of control. This is how people get overwhelmed. This is how people become depressed. This is how people start to go down a spiral that they don't want. And you are the gatekeeper to your own mind. You're the only one that would be able to do that. Yes, danger is real, but fear is a choice. You need to be able to identify that. You need to be able to walk through in the dark, having faith, knowing that if you keep your values straight and you're asking yourself the correct primary question, that you'll be able to get to the other side.
Amazing, Shane. We've already gone into the first half, because the first half title I had was tackles, takedowns, and simply being held back. And you've hit so many of those points and questions, going into victim mode and how you can handle those challenges, between personal relationships to business upheavals. And it's asking that primary question. And what is your primary question? Are you even asking yourself one? And then what's the angle that you're getting at? But please just iterate the importance of taking one step in front of another.
So this comes down to the multitasking, and realistically planning your day out correctly, because I right at the moment, as I mentioned, I'm going through a very difficult emotional experience. And if I try to make anything worse than it is, it becomes worse than it is. If I try to pretend it's better than it is, it becomes worse than it is. So for me, it's about living in the moment. It's about being in the now, right? Now, there's an amazing book by Eckhart Tolle called Power of Now. And it realistically, it speaks about, just in a nutshell, it talks about there's a pretty much a voice that everybody has, this internal dialogue that everybody has that sits there, and it's been built there from evolution. It sits on your shoulder and it's there to protect you from danger, right? This little voice will always try and find the worst in every situation, because it's there as a defense mechanism from your human body to protect you from danger. The problem is that a lot of people nowadays walk around and actually think that that voice is their voice. They are disassociated with the fact that that voice is there as a defense mechanism, and they just run the dialogue directly out of their mouth. And then that's the way that they live. So, one of the things that I really do in part of the meditation is to quieten that voice, understand what it's there for, understand why it's there, appreciate the fact that I've got something trying to protect me, but I question everything now. And I question it in the sense of, I want to live in the exact moment. See, when people feel overwhelmed, they're usually thinking, if we look at a timeline, they're either thinking from the past, they're saying to themselves, oh, well, this happened in the past, so, this could be dangerous. I've done this before and this didn't work, and, that's why I'm not going to do it now. So they're thinking from a past tense, or they're thinking from the future tense. So they're thinking, what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? Maybe I should do nothing, right? Mm-hmm. And they live from a future tense. And the only way that you'll ever get anywhere is to be present. You need to be completely understanding of where you are right now. You need to be completely aware of exactly the present moment. And for me, I think that is the most critical component about how I've been able to walk through the last 7 or 8 days, is because I haven't overplayed it. I haven't thought of the past. I haven't I have, trust me, I mean, we all do, but I haven't lived there. Does that make sense? And I've been able to just concentrate on one foot hitting the ground in front of me, right in front of me. I give myself very simple tasks, like last night I got home and I was feeling flustered. I had 1,000 things to do. So what I did was I pulled the whole page of stuff out of my book and I put it somewhere else. And I wrote down 3 things. It said, kiss my daughter, get a sleeping tablet because I hadn't slept for 4 days, and relax, right? And because I simplified the task, I was able to sleep for like nearly 9 hours last night, which was fantastic. And I wake up this morning and now that list that was nearly overwhelming yesterday is now almost done, and we're 10 o'clock or 10:50 in the morning here on the Gold Coast. So it's amazing how a fresh set of eyes can do something. So just simplify your life. And when I say simplify, when I'm talking about the categories, I know we've got a lot of things to do. I don't concentrate on the to-do list. I concentrate on the category. So I will literally give myself 1 hour to be an admin, right? And then that's it. So I don't do anything else during that period. And I just put one step in front of the other. And believe it or not, usually what would look like 4 hours work, I will not out in about 40 minutes because I don't have distractions. And as young parents start to come through, you're not going to have a lot of time. You're going to be running around, obviously looking after the baby, and things are going to happen, and the baby sends off an alarm by crying, and everybody drops everything. So if you do that, your world becomes reactionary. And what I'm trying to say to you is that it's very important that, I know this is going to sound weird, but babies are allowed to cry for a little bit. You need to finish what you're doing. You need to finish the task, because you need each area of your life to be going forward. Progress equals happiness. So just do one step at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. In fact, simplify your life to a point where you know exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it. And if you get through it before, then don't add another task. Use that time. And, for me, that is family time.
Beautifully said, Shane. Absolutely amazing. That's going to take us into our second half, where we now focus on scoring points. So we know in the game of rugby, we can earn points through tries or conversions, penalties, and drop goals, just to name a few. And that's just like in life. There's always multiple ways to score. How important is it to keep score?
Look, it's very important, but I think I may just slip away just a moment, because it is important to score, and it's important to stop the opposition from scoring, right? So there's two angles that most people do. But I think the true gift in life is not so much whether you win or lose, it's the transformational change of the main character. It's you. So for me, it's if you look at a movie like Rocky starts, and I'm sure Amber's heard this because, Russell Brunson uses this as an analogy, but it's the transformational change of the main character. And, he overcome an obstacle, he fought Apollo Creed, and then right at the very end of the movie, he actually lost that fight. But it's the transformational change of Rocky that everybody got attached to. And I think that when people look at win, lose, or draw, they get a little tied up into the fact that they're trying to win the game, but understand that the winning of the game is the transformational change of you as a human being, who you become, who you transform into. You might not win the first season, you might not win the second season, you might not win a season for 10 years, but if you're transforming and progressing and really starting to become the person that you need to be, and being able to create a culture around your young family, around the people that you love, and become this human being that people aspire to be. I heard a saying once, it's like an honest heart, a sound mind, and a humble soul is the only way through life and into eternity. And any person who gives advice should first give evidence of having all three. And I think the transformational change of a human being and how they become this next version of themselves is very much that's the win. So yes, I get it. Money on the board. Money's not the most important thing in the world, but it's up there with oxygen, right? We all need it. We get it. I'm all for it. And I do work hard, and I work hard in my businesses. But I think overall, the transformational change of the main character, and I'm meaning you, the person that's listening to this, who you transform into, who you become, how you overcome the obstacle, how you push through it, win, lose, or draw, who you become at the other end is more important to the overall story. That's how you win a season.
I absolutely love that, Shane, because I was even thinking, nowadays with children's sports, intramurals or recreational activities, they get a participation trophy. They should be a transformation trophy. That would be amazing. So then they can, rather than just participating, because some people still don't really do anything with it, but at least if you're transforming. So I'd like that. I think that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's great.
And, I heard once that the worst thing that you could ever say to a child is they do something and you say, oh, good boy or good girl, oh, wow, and parents actually reward them for doing something good. And what you need to say in that instance is, thank you, I appreciate your effort. You see, if you start from a very young age to teach your children that it's the effort, it's the effort that counts. Now, trust me, I go to a football game, I'm screaming like every other parent on the side of the thing, right? I want my kid to win. There's no two ways about it, right? But at the end of the day, I want them to do that because I want them to push themselves past their limit to get themselves into a point of absolute exhaustion and then push through that, because that's the transformational change. That's the moment of shift. And it's not about whether they scored the try. It's not about whether they won the game. It's about truly participating at their highest level. And if you can encourage that, and that's why, there is a divide between parents about, whether they should get awards for participating. And I understand both sides, but I think both sides sometimes have the wrong impression. When you can encourage your child to participate at the highest level, and I mean give their all, then it doesn't matter whether they win or lose. If your child's out there and not trying and still gets an award, well, to me, I worry sometimes that does send a wrong message, that you can meander through life and still get an award. Well, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. But that's about the parent instilling in themselves and saying, listen, this is what the word participate means. This is what the word effort means. And if you understand that and you give your all, whether you win, lose, or draw, whether you drop the ball, it doesn't matter. If you're in there and having a go and you can walk off the field and you know in your heart that you gave everything you had for that day, then you are a winner. You are exactly what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And Shane, if you wouldn't mind, because you're touching on it, but I'd love you to actually give a little bit of a speech on what I know we've already had talked personally about this a while back, about the 2 centimeters and how important that is about going that extra reach, if you don't mind. I think it would fit in really well.
Sure. Well, we're about to go into the Commonwealth Games here on the Gold Coast, and there is a massive hysteria here on the Gold Coast, and people need to understand that there's a very, very fine line between good and great. You see, they try so hard to get to the point of good that most people don't ever try so hard to get to the level of great, because they believe that they would need to put in more effort than what they did to get to good, which was nearly insurmountable in itself. And I'm here to tell you that the difference between good and great is 2 millimeters. Tony tells an amazing analogy around golf where, he was hitting a golf ball and the ball was firing off to the left and firing off to the right. And the gentleman said, like, you're almost there. And Tony was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's 100 meters left, 100 meters right. I can't even get it on the fairway. And the gentleman said, yeah, but you're looking at the wrong thing. Let's look down at the club face. The club face is only 2 millimeters off. So when you're hitting the ball, the club face itself is 2 millimeters away from where you need to be. That's what's causing the massive curvature. That's what's sending you off into the woods at the other end. If you can straighten that club face 2 millimeters, we're going to drive it straight down the fairway. And then that is exactly, that is a great analogy for life. A lot of people think that they're so far away from the end. They think that they're so far away from getting to where they need to be. But that you're looking at the result, you're not looking at the process. If you looked at your feet and looked at what you were doing right now, you're 2 millimeters away from greatness. You're 2 millimeters away. And you just need to understand that, with the right strategies and the right state of mind, that, you could be able to shift that daily. And then all of a sudden you go from hitting the ball into the woods to hitting the ball straight down the fairway. Sorry, I swapped sports, but that it's an analogy that really fits. And, we talk about it in rugby league. We talk about the 1% plays. There's an analogy there called the 1% plays. And what that means is that when rugby league, the ball starts moving across, the people that are in front of the ball are trying to defend. The people that have got the ball are trying to attack. But what we call the 1% plays is the people that are on both sides of the field where the ball is not currently at. What are you doing at that point? No one's looking at you, but are you moving up and anticipating what's going to happen? Are you being in a position where if something obscure happened that you would be in a position to either defend or attack? And these are the things that people do at the highest level consistently. They're the 1%ers. They're the things that, the tackle nearly looks complete, but you still run all the way up to the tackler based on the fact that just in case he gets an offload away, and it probably only happens 1 in 100 times. But, that person that does that, they're the ones that get picked at the highest level. Why? Because they're anticipating and they're staying in the play until the play is over, not when it's over in your head. So, how does this come back to life? What are the 1% plays? What are the things that you do consistently when nobody's around that you should do, but hey, no one's listening or watching, right? So maybe it's okay if you get away with it. They're the plays. That's the 2%. That's the 1% plays that you need to be able to get, that you can actually shift your life. Jumping in a car and sitting there and texting your friend on the way to work. What happens if you swap that out and listen to an audio? What happens if you switched out, maybe sitting down, on your lunch break and scrolling through Facebook? What about if you switch that out to just watching a video about how to be a better person, how to shift your life to the next level? What if those little 1% plays was the difference between you're great and you're fantastic? How you become the next level. So, that to me is a very, very important bit. It's not what you do when people are watching you. It's easy to act when people are watching you. It's what you do when people are not watching you, when you're in your darkest moment. How do you get up? How do you drive? How do you do what you do? And how can you make that better?
I love it, Shane. Thank you so much. And I said 2 centimeters, 2 milliliters. You're correct. So thank you so much for giving that insight for golf and for going back into rugby. We'll get close to wrapping this up. So I have an injury time. There's a 1-minute round. Okay.
Okay.
So what this means is I'm going to say a word and you're going to say the first word that comes to your mind.
Okay.
All right. So it's our injury time round. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Health.
Weight.
Travel.
Love it.
Family.
Everything.
Systems.
Business.
Books.
Audio.
Cars.
Annoying.
Fear.
A myth.
Daughters.
My world.
Friends.
Everything.
Business.
Automated.
Pleasure.
A must.
Marketing.
A system.
Mindset.
The control panel.
Dogs.
Coco.
Ego.
The fear.
Beaches.
What was that one?
Beaches.
Features?
Beaches, like ocean beach.
Beaches.
Yeah.
Home.
Education.
Self.
Beer.
Beer?
Yes.
Now we go. Daily.
Entrepreneurship.
Fancy word.
Ownership.
The real word.
Values.
Everything.
Delegating.
A must.
Fire.
Every day.
Awesome. The injury time is done. Your round is over. Thank you so much. We're on to the final 6 tackles, okay? Because as you know, you have to do 6 tackles to score. And we're going to go do a round of 6 countdown questions. You ready?
Okay.
All right. 6 favorite places you've traveled to.
Bora Bora, Maldives, Kenya, Dallas, Texas, Hamilton Island. How many was that?
That was 5.
I'll throw Hayman Island in there as well.
Okay, cool. 5 people you wouldn't be where you are today if it wasn't for them.
My mum, my wife, Tony Robbins, Marcus Setta, and how many was that?
That's 4.
4. One more, Savas Christofi.
Amazing. 4 things, items, or people that you're grateful for.
I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful to live in this period of my life where I believe information is everywhere. Mm-hmm. I'm extremely grateful for all the people that I meet, past and present, and their story and my story. And yeah, I just appreciate sometimes. I always like to throw a little thing in there, like my cat or my dog or, you know, just something small, you know, just the birds, just something silly and small, just so it's easy to appreciate the big, but you got to appreciate the small.
Absolutely. Every day I'm grateful for breathing because there's so many loved ones that have passed away. It's just a simple thing, right? Yeah. Absolutely. 3 mentors, books, audios, or podcasts that you recommend.
Tony Robbins, number 1, without doubt. Tim Ferriss, I believe, is a really, 4-hour work week. I think he is great. And I will say Russell Brunson, because he is literally got me by the short and curlies at the moment.
He's blowing your mind, isn't he?
Yeah. Another one, it would be Brene Brown. I think she's fantastic.
Great call. 2 fondest memories.
Getting married. We were engaged for 16 years before we got married. So, that was a really fond memory. You got to test the waters, right? 16 years.
Clearly, 16.
And the other one would be a personal level, would be speaking in front of 23,000 people because it closed a loop for me. Yeah,
massive. And then 1, your biggest regret, aka lesson learned. And the reason why I say that, because I don't believe in regrets. I think they're all lessons or experiences that bring us to where we are today. What would be one of your biggest lessons learned?
I think probably if I was going to go down that route, I would probably think my biggest lesson learned was this illusion of control. That the minute I realized that I stopped trying to swim in the ocean, I realized I floated.
Massive. Really powerful stuff, Shane. Thank you so much. Would there be anything else, because I'm going to wrap up today's match, is there anything else that you'd like to add to today's match before I ask the final question?
No. I think, honestly, I am very big on time management. We did a little video series on that, which you can check out on my website, of course, but it runs through 10 days, which breaks down the categories. And I think if people just do the little things and they do them consistently, I think, just don't be so hard on yourself. And as I say, when you stop trying to struggle and swim, you realize you float. So as hard as that seems when things are bad, I think letting go sometimes is the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Letting go is very important. I've been on a massive learning curve of that myself. It's very powerful. Thank you so much, Shane, for everything for today, for taking the time out, especially in this time with your family. Please know that we're praying for Shelly and hoping that she comes out, well and recovered, and for Brooke as well. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The last but not least question is, how can people get in touch with you? I'm sure they're dying to know. Facebook is probably a big one, but probably the easiest way is just to jump over onto my website, shaneanderson.biz, and there's links there to my Facebook page, and you can just generate a message and download the videos for free if you want to check out about the time things, and just reach out, say hello. I love hearing people's stories, and
I like to see people do well. So, and I'd love to hear if there's anything that I've been able to add value, or if you thought that something should have been done a different way. I'm open for suggestions. I'm in a growth phase myself. So, guys, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, Amber and Mick, and I wish you all the best for your wedding coming up. And I wish I was in Ireland with you. So, guys, I love you heaps.
Oh, thank you so much, Shane. You're amazing. Thank you, listeners. That wraps up today's call. Next week, we'll have Catherine Taylor on, and we'll be coming to you every Monday. Take care until then. Thanks. Bye.